Subscribe to Master for a strong and prosperous economy.
The 2PM Newscast
with
Frinui Crispin.
Monday, November the 3rd, 2025. Ladies and gentlemen, you are welcome to the 2PM Newscast on Real FM. In our top stories, House Speaker Honorable Kavayege Jibril has condemned acts of vandalism with the ongoing post-electoral tensions in the country. He was speaking today while opening the November session of Parliament in Yaoundé. This has, however, sparked reaction from parliamentarians.
I think the structures have taken their own stand, they have played their roles as it's supposed to be.
And we are again putting a message to the youth. There is no reason to tear down your country because of an election.
Out of the country, Tanzanian President Samia Suluhu Hassan has been sworn in for a second term amid tight security following an election marked by protests and violence. And in sport, we talk rugby, Bishkek, and cycling. Dear listeners, thanks for joining us. We take you to our special page.
2025 presidential election, our special page in the news.
Glory Ngange, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Finu Crispin.
Let's begin with Issa Chiroma Bakari's address after rumors about his abduction.
Issa Chiroma Bakari, flag bearer of the Cameroon National Salvation Front, the FSNC party, has addressed Cameroonians in a recorded video on his Facebook page, informing his supporters and sympathizers about his safety. This as rumors went viral announcing his sudden abduction to an unknown destination. The self-proclaimed winner of the October 12 presidential election calls on citizens to respect a 3-day lockdown slated to begin today and will last till November the 5th, 2025. He also called on supporters to remain home as well as organize peaceful protests. Issa Chiroma insists that he won the just-ended elections and he will fight to save Cameroonians. He concluded his message by thanking supportive citizens and reaffirms his commitment to ensure Cameroon's people will be respected. The candidate, however, has not mentioned his whereabouts in the recent video. It is worth noting that Issa Chiroma Bakari publicly made the announcement of a nationwide ghost town on Friday following unjust response of the government to recent protests carried out by angry Cameroonians. He continues to deny results made public by the Constitutional Council, as he termed it as falsified results, which does not reflect the people's ballot. Crispin.
Glory, you have information on the Minister of Communications outing denouncing calls for demonstration amid post-electoral tensions.
The Minister of Communication, government spokesperson Rene Emmanuel Sadi made the outing in response to calls for Cameroonians to continue protests as well as observe a 3-day lockdown. On this note, the minister urged Cameroonians not to heed to the calls but go about their daily activities. Rene Emmanuel Sadi condemns the invitation by Issa Chiroma Bakari to violent protests by demonstrators in some regions of the country. The government spokesperson strongly warns those who have been opposing the final declaration of the Constitutional Council. Rene Emmanuel Sadi in this excerpt.
In a democratic country, we would have expected all candidates to take note of this result and congratulate each other and congratulate the winner. But we saw the contrary, and a candidate contested this result, and unfortunately, the same candidate today is trying to incite our fellow countrymen not to accept the verdict. The consequences are quite preoccupying. They even try to incite people to this phenomenon that we knew in those days, which we call ville morte, which asked people not to go to work, not to open the shops and everything. And you could see that this behavior may have very serious consequences on our economy, and people will suffer from that. People are afraid. So I thought, as the Minister of Communication, I should take my responsibility and appeal to our population and to tell them not to obey to these appeals. They should go to work and they should open their shops, and people should continue to live. They should not be threatened.
The Archbishop of Douala condemns violence, protest, and urges state authorities to embrace dialogue. Glory.
Definitely, Crispin, the Metropolitan Archbishop of Douala, His Grace Samuel Kleda, has condemned the violence and unrest that erupted after the proclamation of results from Cameroon's October 12 presidential elections. In a statement released last Friday, Archbishop Kleda expressed concerns over the anger and frustration of citizens who believe their electoral will was ignored. He decried the destruction, looting, and killing recorded in cities such as Douala, Garwa, Marwa, Betwa, and Chang, calling the act as deplorable and unacceptable. Meantime, the clergy also criticized the use of force, arbitrary arrest, and intimidation in handling the post-electoral crisis, stressing that Cameroon cannot be governed with weapons. He urged authorities to embrace dialogue and justice to restore peace and stability. Bishop Kleda further highlighted rising unemployment, poverty, and stating that they reflect a leadership disconnected from the people. Finyo Crispin, back to you.
And thank you very much, Glory Ngange, for that news on post-electoral elections. As post-electoral protests have disrupted businesses in some parts of Cameroon, some economic actors are facing significant challenges in their activities due to an alleged complicity of their peers. Observing pro-Ghost Town appeals from opposition candidate Chiroma Bakari, Jeffrey Tachum spoke to an economic expert and now reports.
In the midst of post-electoral protests witnessed in many parts of Cameroon that led to the slowdown of several businesses, some political figures are advocating for ghost town observation. For economic analysts, it is high time that business operators break the silence and fight for the national economy. However, this might not be possible unless a certain number of conditions are being put in place, according to Stéphane Kwam.
Presently, people are exploring ways of bringing their help, whether or not they are economic actors. However, it is not easy to answer to these questions because when you analyze the situation from a strategic point of view, you will realize that there is always a risk, no matter the solution.
In addition, the expert highlights the fact that there is a will from various people to participate in our nation building from an economic standpoint, but this is not always an easy task.
The silence of some economic operators might be surprising, but this silence obeys the laws of business. Generally, when any economy is paralyzed, the consequences are political instability, and many economic actors choose not to take sides.
Cameroon is entangled in the middle of an economic storm, confirming concerns expressed by several international agencies regarding the risk that business operators will bear as a result of this post-electoral crisis.
As you heard in one of our top stories, the Speaker of the National Assembly, Kavayege Jibril, has condemned acts of vandalism, fear and terror created by post-electoral tension in some parts of the country. The head of the lower house of parliament was speaking earlier today while chairing the last ordinary session for the current legislative period dedicated to the adoption of the state budget. During today's opening session, Honorable Kavayege Jibril also reminded MPs that multipartyism has been in Cameroon since 1992, and Cameroonians had the chance of showcasing their civil rights last October 12, 2025. And after the session at the Paul Biya's Glass House in Yaoundé, staffman Abel Bila Samari got the reaction of Honorable Malomba and Honorable Adamu Edwards.
Parliamentarians are calling for peace because they are representing the people and they think that where they have asked people to move to is a rightful track. The people on the streets are saying that they are calling for justice. What justice do you want for? I think the country has a whole structure in terms of justice, and the procedure has passed through all these structures. Even they are asking for justice, we think the structures have taken their own stand, they have played their roles as it's supposed to be.
And we are again putting a message to the youth. There is no reason to tear down your country because of an election. No one should make you an instrument. You are mature enough to know what is good. We've had an election, that phase is over.
Honorable Tiko Tanye Titi, Member of Parliament from Manu Eyumojo. I talk particularly to my people from Manu Division. We have worked with everybody, hands on deck, women, men and the youths, to bring peace back. And that is why our youths went back to agriculture. Cocoa is booming. It is true, we also have difficulties like other people, problems of electricity and water. But government is doing. We are going to talk about the budget. We'll do everything that most of what is lacking will come back to our people.
The November session will also feature the maiden edition of the translation open day at the Senate and the swearing-in of President-elect Paul Biya. And as senators prepare to converge in Yaoundé as from 4 p.m. for the third ordinary session of Parliament for the 2025 legislative year, our newsroom got the reaction of some senators in this Vox Pop.
Senator from Chafa of the Northwest constituency. There's a lot of unemployment in the country, the road infrastructure, the economy of the country, and of course, we have just come out of the presidential election. The budget that we shall be examining, I will be very keen on what we shall be adopting would address some of the concerns of Cameroonians.
Senator Fon Ekokomukete from the Southwest region. His Excellency President Paul Biya, winner of this presidential election, will be taking the oath before the Cameroonian people and before God and man. A time of hope, a time of greatness, a time of consolidating of the peace we've enjoyed. We don't want things to go out of hand, so we are really excited about this very important session.
Senator Françoise Pouene from the West region. I will first thank God. We will examine and adopt the budget of Cameroon for the next year.
Senator Belamoki Charles from the Southwest region. My expectations are tied to the feelings of Cameroonians, feelings that were expressed during the just ended presidential elections and feelings that are being expressed after the election of His Excellency Paul Biya. We should, as legislatures, harmonize our thinking and offer an adequate response to the expectations of the people we represent.
Honorable Senator Enwe Francis from the Northwest region. We're expecting the government to table in very strategic and important bill that would touch positively the life of the Cameroonian people, our economy. We will do just our best.
2025 presidential election, that was our special page in the news.
It is 14 minutes past the hour of 2 p.m. You are listening to the 2 p.m. newscast on Real FM. On to something else away from politics. The issue of democracy in Cameroon has remained a bone of contention, with many questioning the extent to which the country's democratic credentials hold true in practice. Our reporter Ngangnadesh spoke to some citizens about their views on whether democracy in Cameroon exists only in name or if it is a tangible reality. Her reports.
Cameroon has been grappling with questions about the state of its democracy. Despite holding regular elections, concerns persist about the government's commitment to democratic principles, human rights and the rule of law. For some Cameroonians, democracy is almost a myth as they express frustration over restrictions. Full chair is one of them.
The people's will are not respected, the people's view are not taken into consideration because it is inadmissible that in an election where multiple fraud cases were made visible, and even jungle justice treatment given to some of the electoral workers, the results were still accepted and all appeals for annulation were judged non-valid or void to it. Just reflects our state of democracy, which is very negligible, not to say inexistent.
Naomi shares a similar view on Cameroon's democratic situation.
Democracy is by the people, for the people, and of the people. And with all what is happening in Cameroon, I don't believe there's democracy in Cameroon. That democracy they're talking about is just by their lips and not by action. There's no democracy.
Buambi Elvison, on his part, looks at the situation of democracy in Cameroon from the context of its definition.
Cameroon is very far from being a democratic country. It is obvious and very truthful that Cameroon is in the hands of a dictator regime, and that is very far from democracy. Democracy, in simple terms, means will of the people matters, meaning that the people have their voices respected. That is democracy. But here in Cameroon, if we are to define democracy, therefore Cameroon is truly very, very far from being a democratic country.
He concludes by saying that,
first of all, the will of the people is never respected in Cameroon. Cameroon suffers from political manipulation from a handful of those who govern, the administrators. The will of the neo-colonialists, that is what matters to them, and it is their master. So to say Cameroon can match democracy is a blatant lie, because Cameroon truly is very, very far from being a democratic country.
As noted by Larry Diamond, democracy is about more than just elections. It's about the protection of individual rights and the rule of law. According to Claude Ake, democratic governance should prioritize the needs and participation of citizens. With these principles in mind, the state of democracy remains a complex and multifaceted issue.
Joining me in the studio is editorialist and director of information, Abel Bilas Samari. Good afternoon, Abel.
And good afternoon to you, Finwe Crispin.
Abel, in the following commentary, you look at the type of democracy proposed by the Reverend Pastor Emmanuel Noel Bisai, which he says the creation of a body known as the Council of Sentinel to oversee the functioning of the executive, legislative, and judiciary arms, thereby bringing checks and balances.
Democracy, we were told, is government for the people, by the people to the people, meaning democracy is a system of governance in which power ultimately belongs to the people. In democracy, citizens have the right to participate in political discussion, making typical, true, free, and fair election, where they choose their representative or directly vote on laws and policies. This democracy imported in Africa has not met up African reality when we talk about democracy. Many scholars in Africa have described African democracy as far from African reality. The first African model of democracy doesn't refer to a single, universal, acceptable model. Rather, it describes a set of ideas and debates around how democracy is practiced, adapted, and should be adopted in the African context, taking into account cultural diversity, institutional legacy, socio-economic challenges, and the well-being of the people. Each time in the African continent, there's election, people will contest election results, classifying it as corrupt and fraudulent. This discrepancy leads to destruction and loss of life. Reverend Pastor Bisai Emmanuel Noel has come out with a God-given model of democracy that will meet the aspiration and development needs of the African people. He talked of the creation of the Higher Council of the Sentinel. The Higher Council of the Sentinel stands as a beacon of wisdom, dignity, and unwavering integrity, formed in times when truth is fragile and the world waves between chaos and clarity. The council emerged as a gathering of those whose insight rose above personal ambition. Each sentinel is chosen not for power or wealth, but for the steadiness of their character and the depth of their discrepancy and discernment. Bound by an oath to uphold justice and preserve harmony, the council serves as a both guardians and guides. Its members deliberate not in haste, but with reflection, seeking understanding before judgment and unity before division. Their discussion and decisions are shaped by compassion and tempered by experience, for they believe that wisdom is not found in dominance but in balance. According to this model of democracy proposed by Reverend Pastor Bisa Emmanuel, each locality would elect their sentinels. These sentinels will move to the subdivisional level, divisional level, and regional level. At the national level, they will elect 7 sentinels to form the Higher Council of Sentinel. This council will have a mandate of 1 year, while the regional, divisional, and subdivisional councils of sentinels could have their own mandate as stipulated by the law that will put in place. The 7 sentinels of the higher councils will elect the president. They will be like the auditors of the state to check the excesses, not only the president but the governing class, so that corruption can be put to an end. Reverend Pastor Bisa Emmanuel added that with the way our politics in Africa is practiced based on tribal line, if it is not through strong institutions like the Higher Council of Sentinel that can power, control, and develop the people through the different projects that will be put in place, we are going to have an upside-down democracy in the African continent.
Abel Bela Samari, editorialist and director of information, signing that commentary. The internet connection in several towns around Cameroon has been on the low, with regular cuts experienced on a daily, although some of the network providers have been sending messages of apology for the poor internet qualities. Cameroonians have also voiced out their opinions on the issue. Get them speak in this Vox Pop compiled by Mapalazita.
The internet is very, very poor, and with this situation I'm unable to do my work. It's like I do almost nothing because I work with the internet and I'm always online. So it is this unstable. It penalizes me, but try my best to do the little I can do and waiting for the internet to become stable back.
It is so frustrating. Things are expensive. And the small internet that somebody could even be browsing and get herself lost in it, they don't want to give up. In fact, we just have to carry the cross of Jesus Christ with it. That's what we are doing now.
The first few days, I didn't know that was what was happening. I thought that it was my phone. I could put my phone off and on it like 100 times a day. But when I've noticed that it's a general thing and it's reoccurring, I just like, okay, then the day will be stable, I will be fine, and then I will move on.
We just sit back and observe. Although it pains us, but we cannot say anything with the current state of the country. No internet, they give us when they want. Even light, they give us when they want. We just pray that everything will be okay.
The recurrent internet cuts is really horrible, most especially for us students, because most of the times when the lecturer doesn't show up for a class, he's going to communicate in the group. You wait and wait and wait. There's no message. We even try to switch to other SIMs. There's even no difference.
Cameroon on November the 2nd joined other nations worldwide to commemorate the International Day to End Impunity for Crimes Against Journalists. This day is aimed at highlighting the persistently high level of impunity for crimes committed against journalists worldwide. As the day is being observed every November 2nd, Evans Williams Jobati caught up with some media professionals and now reports.
Observe every November 2nd, the International Day to End Impunity for Crimes Against Journalists is a UN-recognized international day aimed at reflecting on some impunity crimes committed against these journalists worldwide. Dewa Fabrice is a newspaper writer.
It's a very complex one because you don't know what to expect at times. It's true that here in Cameroon, we don't have so much of that danger. We operate freely. We can do practically anything we want to do. But again, you always have on the back of your mind that there's always that danger. There's always that uncertainty about what's going to happen next to you if you say this or that.
To Mimefo, she recalls some impunity crimes she was a victim of.
As journalist, I have personally witnessed and experienced this story firsthand. In Cameroon today, telling the truth can cost even your freedom. It can also cost your life. Many of my colleagues are no longer with us. For example, Samuel Wadziziwu died in military custody. Martinez Zoko was brutally murdered for daring to ask the questions on the minds of Cameroonians, the questions that mattered.
Added to this, the web journalists wish for brighter days in the profession where rights will be respected.
Some of us had to flee our homes, the comfort, our country, not because we did what was wrong, but because we refused to stay silent. And yet, here we are, still speaking, still believing, and still hoping. It's about accountability. It's about change. It's about courage. It's about what people stand for despite everything that is happening around us.
In the same light, Dewa Fabrice reveals some difficulties journalists face which could go extreme.
Also have information of media people being harassed left and right, maybe because of the positions that they take maybe on the editorial line or the institution that they are working for. Those things, information recently of the guys working for the state media, they were harassed sort of based on the fact that they work for the state media and all of those things. So that complexity is there, but again, it's really relatively safe to be a journalist in Cameroon, but those issues are there, that fear is there, that uncertainty is there.
According to the UNESCO Observatory, between 2006 and 2024, more than 1,700 journalists were killed globally, with nearly 90% of these cases remaining unsolved in the courts, as journalists play a critical role in reporting facts to all citizens. Impunity for attacks against them has a particular damaging impact, limiting public awareness and constructive debate.
We now take you to talk what is making news out of Cameroon with Mapala Zita. Hello, Zita.
Hello to you, Fringwe Crispin.
Zita, our first stop is in Nigeria, where U.S. President Donald Trump is threatening to attack.
Donald Trump made the threat over the weekend when he said he has ordered the Pentagon to begin planning for potential military action in Nigeria as he stepped up his allegations that the government is failing to rein in persecutions of Christians in the West African country. He further warned, and I quote, "If the Nigerian government continues to allow the killing of Christians, the USA will immediately stop all aid and assistance to Nigeria and may very well go into that now disgraced country, guns are blazing, to completely wipe out the Islamic terrorists who are committing these horrible atrocities," unquote, Crispin.
You see, Tanzania's president-elect has been sworn in today.
Samia Suluhu Hassan was sworn in this Monday at a ceremony limited to invited guests following a disputed election that sparked deadly protest after two main opposition candidates were barred from running. The ceremony was held on government-owned grounds in the administrative capital, Dodoma, a departure from the past when the president took the oath of office at packed football stadium that were open to the public. Most people in Dodoma reportedly stayed home today for fear of the unknown.
What else do you have from the international scene, Zita?
Presidential campaigns in Guinea-Bissau kicked off this weekend without the main opposition party. The country's 860,000 voters will head to the polls on November the 23rd to elect a president and 102 parliament members. 12 candidates are up for the presidential race, including current president Umaru Sissoco Embalo, who appears to be a favorite. In an unprecedented move, the coalition led by the African Party for the Independence of Guinea and Cape Verde, page C, has been excluded from the presidential and legislative elections. This after the Supreme Court ruled that page C and its candidate Domingos Simoes Pereira had submitted their nomination too late. This will definitely be the first general vote without page C since Guinea-Bissau gained independence from Portugal in 1974. Then at least 20 people have died after an earthquake struck northern Afghanistan, and according to authorities, the death toll is expected to rise as rescue efforts continue. Hundreds have also been left injured as the magnitude 6.3 quake struck near Magari Sharif, one of the country's largest cities that is home to about 500,000 people, in the early hours of today. Back to you, Crispine.
Thank you, Mapalazita. We now take you to talk sport. In rugby, the dynamic championship competition organized by Group Esono has completed 3 delayed fixtures for match day 9. The games were held over the weekend in Akono, located in the Mefu and Afamba division of the Central Region. Biwa Brian was on site and compiled the following report.
The most notable match saw AS Masoda defeat Grafil of Ebolowa with a decisive score of 55 points to 20 points. The said victory was the 4th for Masoda, while the defeat was Gorill's 8, keeping them at the bottom of the table after 9 games. Bekwe Etan Daniel Dennis plays for AS Masoda.
The match was very simple for us because we practiced all this at the training with the coach. The coach told us what we were supposed to do, what they would do, their tactics, and also it was very easy for us. We just have to train more to do better.
The second fixture pitted the league's frontrunners Lyon against Espoir. After approximately an hour and a half of play, and Lyon managed to secure the narrow victory with a low score of 12 points to 7. The low margin and scoreline reflected a game dominated defensively, and a point which is confirmed by the National Technical Director Alfred Daniel Bissot.
I'm very impressed with the level of the players, from the female to the boys. The last match, which was pitting Espoir against Lyon, we saw 2 clubs that are well positioned in the ranking table and with a standard of play which is of good level. That is portrayed by the slight difference between the 2 clubs in the terms of score.
The day's competition also included a day 5 fixture in the women's category, where Eagle Girls overwhelmed Honey of Etudi with a dominant 40-3 victory. Notably, this entire championship is a personal effort by the Group Esono intended to ensure players remain active during this period when the Cameroon Rugby Union is internationally suspended.
Seeing what is happening now in Cameroon in terms of rugby, because there is no competition in the federation. So we hope that when things will come back to normal, we are keeping rugby alive so that at least we should find players that are having competitions that could tomorrow represent Cameroon in the international standard.
With match day 9 now complete, the men's competition moves on to day 10, and the women's competition will feature match day 6 this weekend on Saturday, November 8, 2025.
And Brian, we note that the games were held over the weekend in Akono, located in the Mefu and Akono division of the Central Region. A delegation of 10 Cameroonian Sambo athletes is set to depart for Bishkek on Tuesday morning to compete at the 2025 World Sambo Championship from November 7 to 9. The athletes who have been in an internal training camp for over a month will aim for medals in both Sambo sport and Sambo combat disciplines. Here is an excerpt of the Federation President, Maître François Mbassi, before tomorrow's takeoff.
All is going very, very well in the technical level, administrative level, and sportive level. We began our external preparation and we stopped this external training on the 28th October. And we began internal training on the 29th. This internal training will stop on October 3 this night because the departure is after midnight. Preparation is very well because when I look at this preparation, this training this morning, our athletes are very, very confident to go to this World Championship and fight for gold medals. Cameroon is a very, very respectable country in the world because Cameroon have 2 champions, world champion, Jimuro Seydou and Maxwell Jantu Nana. And we hope to have 10 athletes, and we think that our request will be granted and we will travel with 10 athletes to do more than last year.
And in cycling, Cameroon's national cycling team has concluded its participation at the 36th edition of the FASO Tour in Burkina Faso, securing an 8th place rank overall. The 6 cyclist squad completed the 10th lap competition with a combined time of 71 hours, 44 minutes and 13 seconds, while the host country, Burkina Faso, finished first overall. Olivier Ndema Epo is here with the summary of this newscast in the French language. Good afternoon.
Bon après-midi, Frinu Crispin. La troisième session ordinaire de l'Assemblée législative 2025 s'est ouverte ce jour au siège de l'Assemblée nationale. La dite session législative est consacrée à l'examen et à l'adoption du budget de l'État du Cameroun au titre de l'année et de l'exercice 2026. L'honorable Cavaye Yege Djibril a présidé en mi-journée la plénière d'ouverture. Hors de nos frontières, le président des États-Unis, Donald Trump, songe à attaquer militairement les bases nigérianes des djihadistes terroristes. Le locataire de la Maison-Blanche explique son attitude par le fait que les terroristes de Boko Haram causent la mort de nombreux chrétiens au Nigeria. Le successeur de Joe Biden parle du génocide de populations chrétiennes. Donald Trump motive son attitude par le fait que le gouvernement nigérian n'en fasse pas assez, de son avis, pour protéger les chrétiens nigérians. Une rencontre est toutefois en cours d'organisation entre Donald Trump et le président de la Fédération du Nigeria, Bola Tinubu. Et sport pour finir, la 9e journée en retard du championnat du dynamisme de rugby à 15 s'est déroulée le week-end dernier. 3 rencontres en retard ont eu lieu dans la ville d'Akono et le département de la Meufou-Akono dans la région du centre.
The 2 p.m. newscast was technically assisted by Ulrich Kumwe, our sound engineer and studios clerk, video editor Brian Bida, producer Glory Ngange, news editing Mapala Zita, editorial coaching Ebol Bila Samari, coordination Roger Kiek, and for general supervision the Reverend Pastor Bisaya Emmanuel Noel. For presentation, I have been Frinyo Crispin. Take the rendezvous